Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Rob with Shacknews.com, and we are here with another Shacknews Wide World of Electronic Sports exclusive one-on-one interview. And I have the man, the myth, the legend, one of the brains behind Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, Thaddeus Cruz. Thaddeus, talk to me. How you feeling today, man?
Hey, I am doing well. Been looking forward to this, and it's been a while since I've done one of these sit-down style interviews. So, long overdue, happy to do it in this place.
Hey, I'm happy to have you on board. You know, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl is, I mean, as somebody who comes from the platform fighting community, I don't even want to just say like one game, like, you know, Brawlhalla, Smash, whatever. Like, I think all the games need to all get out and support each other. And I want to make sure I represent that in its entirety. And I think, you know, everything that you guys have done with that game has just been super dope. But before we get started on that, I feel like games like those, work like yours, it doesn't happen overnight. Can we talk about some of like your gaming roots, your earliest, you know, footsteps in gaming?
Yeah, you're right. This is not something that just happens overnight. The vast majority of people on this project are very much passionate gamers in some way or another. Failing that, just passionate artists, passionate for the medium in some way. But myself got started, man, I don't even think I could give you a specific day. I think my first console was absolutely the NES. And
yes,
at this point, I'm almost positive the Super Nintendo was out. Maybe even the N64. But our family just had an NES, so I played an NES, and that's all I knew. So that's what I was happy with.
Hey, you know, the NES is a classic, so I understand.
Oh yeah, I got a whole lot of enjoyment out of that. But if it wasn't that, it was something on PC, and I was a kid, so I was just fascinated by the programs in general, so I don't even know if I could say, oh, my first game was a screensaver where you saw a bunch of fish. That's what entertained me as a youngin'.
Hey, I hear you, man. So I guess, you know, it goes without saying that gaming impacted your life in a pretty big way, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just see everything that you do, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, this type of stuff just doesn't happen overnight. I guess my next question would be, when did you know that you wanted to make gaming a career path for yourself? You know, I believe we're probably around the same age, and, you know, with the way the gaming industry is today, you know, trying to pitch this, like if we jumped in a time machine and tried to pitch this to ourselves so many years ago, we'd be like, we can't work in video games. What are we
it's
talking about? But how did you do it?
It's crazy to wrap my mind around that I am in this position. And to that end, it never really was something I actively pursued, is the thing. Because the way I got into this industry was very unorthodox. I think I tried to tell this on one of the official Nickelodeon streams when this was starting up, but there were technical difficulties at the time, so I'll go ahead and share this here instead. Okay. My career trajectory in the games industry played out like an episode of Mr. Magoo, where I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, consistently. With, like, first getting to know and meet Ludosity, I became aware of them through Slap City, which I became aware of in a joke video making fun of icons. And at the end of that video, there was a throwaway joke about Slap City. So I picked up the game as a joke because it was $5, and I fell in love with it in the tutorial. So from there, I integrated myself with that early community, was one of the very first competitive players for that game alongside Baboonga. And in doing so, got notoriety recognized by those developers, and eventually, as events started expanding in a larger scale, that is to say, in-person events, I volunteered myself to help out with those events, and in doing so, got myself into an official position on their team. At this point, it was just community management on my own time, so very much not paid beyond like travel expenses to that event. I was Ludosity tentatively. then that next year rolled around, and I got more freedom with the engine of Slap City, which blew me away that they gave me that opportunity. It was initially mainly for aiding with collecting replays, showing off clips in the best way possible. But then I started, honestly, like a kid in a sandbox tinkering around.
Uh-oh.
And I thought uh-oh at first, but they just let me. I still to this day don't know why, but they let me have fun, rework the hurtboxes and hitboxes on basically every single character in the game. And there's almost zero documentation on how any of that worked. But I put my best foot forward in an area where I arguably shouldn't have. And that ultimately led me to have, what's the word for it? Pedigree? At least some familiarity with those tools.
Sure.
And those same tools are the ones that were used, or very similar tools, are the tools used on the Nickelodeon game. So because I had that familiarity, and because some people on that project were coming off, I was like, hey, we have somebody on our team who knows this engine, more or less, and is very excited and willing to contribute. So I did. And from there into becoming, like, prolific with the game and people recognizing who I am, almost more so than any other person on the team or any of the teams involved, not a clue how that happened. That just happened. I can't give advice or say much beyond that. I did not have a career trajectory for games. It just happened.
Right. I mean, it seems like, though, you led with your heart, though. I mean, can we at least agree on that? You know, even though there wasn't a plan,
yes.
like, you led with your heart.
Absolutely, yes. I loved every second of it. I'm so happy and thrilled for the opportunity, but in a way that I cannot even now describe. It's still so unreal to be in this position. I'm so happy to continue contributing to it even now, and I'm just happy that it's leading me to opportunities of all sorts, including this interview now. Like, it's all consequential, and it's all driven by heart.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, man. You're one of the first developers I've ever had the chance to sit with, so I'm kind of feeling the exact same way. I'm like, hey, I'm just a guy doing what he loves in this industry, and I've never talked to a developer before, let alone from a genre of game that I really enjoy myself. So let's rewind a little bit here. You know, you said you got in with Slap City, started reworking the hitboxes. You know, I feel like when people pick up games, they start to look at the games through different lenses, through different lights. Are you one of those guys who, like, when I pick something up, I'm like, it's cool, but what if we did it this way? Like, I like these hitboxes, but what if we just tweaked it a little bit? Are you one of those guys?
To an extent, I would say. In the sense that I was one of those guys with Slap City, but beyond that, yes, I would say to an extent, but I also don't want to spend too much time ruminating on what something can be when I could instead be enjoying what it is.
That's right.
If I never had that opportunity to adjust things within Slap City, I'd still be playing that game because I love Slap City. It still has, like, rock solid, I'd argue, like, perfect platform fighter movements and control. And there's, like, who cares about the hitboxes and hurtboxes at that stage? It's already just satisfying to do things in. That's the best thing you can get out of the game, in my opinion. Just where you can waste time by doing nothing.
I mean, well, when you're beating the living crap out of somebody, it never feels like you're doing nothing. But I will say this. Of all the platform fighters that are out there, and there are quite a few, I feel the most prone to press buttons in Slap City and Nickelodeon All-Stars. Like, it feels like, you know, there's the general rock, paper, scissors in fighting games. I just feel like I just have so much of an advantage when I hit my opponent that it's like, why would I not keep playing this game? This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to press buttons unforgivably and then hope that I win this match, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's entirely fair.
Yeah.
Even though you do say that, it is, like, always worth saying, and it does I know you didn't mean it this way, but I have to say it now because you reminded me. It is weird when I occasionally see people mention and say that Slap and Nick are like the same game.
Right.
Which is, like, sure, on a surface level I can see that, but it's comparable to saying that Melee and Brawl are the same.
Right, which we all know those two games are vastly different.
Night and day.
Yes.
In a gameplay way. But surface level, yes, and I'm right there with you on a surface level, and I don't see that as a bad thing either.
No, absolutely not. I think when it comes to like pushing the advantage state competitively, I'm working with the same part of my brain in Nick and in Slap City, where like in some of the other platform fighters, and no disrespect to them at all, maybe limited for lack of better terms, just in terms of like, okay, I got a hit, can I get another hit? You know, some games, yes, you know, but I feel like it's rewarded very well in Nick and Slap City, and it scratches that itch. You know, I had the opportunity to sit with Max pretty much night and day with Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl and Slap City. We both kind of came to a similar conclusion that like, dude, like these two games here, like if you have like that need to just press buttons in a platform fighter, this is the one for you, because the games I've commentated in Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl and Slap City, I mean, I have had the most fun in my entire life. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, entertainment just absolutely seeps out of those games if you don't have to try very hard for it in those games either, which is a testament with how relatively bare bones a lot of those moments can be. It's just characters interacting that gets that visceral feeling.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. So, you know, we've talked about Slap City, but maybe let's talk a little bit about Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. I mean, it's it's the new kid on the block, you know, shaking up the scene in the platform fighting community. Let's talk about Nickelodeon All-Stars just in its current state. You know, what are your thoughts on it? You know, we've been partnering with events like Super Smash Con. You know, there's a Nickelodeon Summit coming up at the place that I live at in New Jersey. I mean, what are your thoughts on all of this?
It's still just, it is so surreal to see it happening with a project that I've had my hands on and was able to contribute to. But even putting that aside, I'm thrilled that the platform fighter community itself is expanding. Like, I would be celebrating and shouting from the rooftops a summit of any platform fighter that isn't Smash, because that is such a rarity. And I am absolutely wanting to embrace that to the best of my ability. So, like, being able to talk with Max directly on a lot of the stuff regarding the event has been absolutely fantastic. It helps me feel like I'm contributing however I can, willing to hear people out, willing to hear the community out. And it's just wanting to be there for people and directly helping them in the best way they can is so rewarding, and it paying off in dividends. It's great. Me saying that, I feel like I'm undercutting what Max is doing. What Max is doing is insane.
Well, I think, you know, when I just speaking with you, and then after knowing Max for almost 10 years, you know, sometimes you look at your friends, you know, one to one, and then you also look at them from like outside looking in. It makes sense that you two work so well together, whether you guys are working directly or you guys have your hands in a similar project from two different parts of the world. You know, you guys look at the game kind of through a similar lens. You know, here's the hitboxes, here's why I appreciate the game, here's how it can be better. And not only just being better from like a competitive standpoint, but here's how we can make the game more immersive, like a Nickelodeon Summit or partnering with Super Smash Con. I mean, these are things completely unheard of from any other game, platform fighter at least, like outside of Smash. You guys are doing the damn thing, man.
Yeah, a lot of that can also be attributed to GameMill, who have been very much taking initiative and helping out with these events in the best way that they can. And in that respect, as a publisher, they've been fantastic.
No doubt about that. So, you know, we talked about hitboxes and, you know, making the game better, you know, not only just for your liking, but for the overall better of the community. You know, what were some of your thoughts kind of going into Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl? I mean, and I'll just kind of put it as frank as possible. You know, I'm sure you've seen the comparisons. You know, they're always in your face all the damn time. But when I think of Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, I'm like, this is the second platform fighter, successful one with recognizable IPs. Now I know Slap City were more original IPs, but you know, these ones come from a completely different, you know, set of entities. Did you feel any pressure to perform? You know, like, I'm using Nickelodeon characters, I better go as completely crazy as possible with this.
I suppose it's a pressure in its own rights to work with these IPs, because that's just inherent to the IPs. It's not like, okay, you guys get to use our very much industry created brand that we spent decades building up.
Right.
We're going to hand those to you and let you go at it. That does not happen. That cannot happen in like any game. So like, yes, there is that pressure. There is that expectation to represent the franchises and brand to the best of our ability, just because that's expected by handling that brand. Beyond that, I'm just happy we had as much freedom as we did. Because people can look at the game and very much see what feels like restrictions and make very, very valid criticisms based on that, which can be difficult from a developer view to not comment on.
Sure.
But it is at the same time, it's not entirely wholly restrictive. The fact that movesets were able to be constructed by the development team, and it still would have to be approved or go through due process, but at its origin, were on our end and then implemented by us. Like, that is rewarding. I'd say it's more rewarding overall to work with these than it feels like pressure. Pressure's obviously there. Pressure's always going to be there. I'd say that's just true of any project. But more so, it's rewarding. Well, seeing it through, it's rewarding. In the moment, it can be crazy and hectic. Again, like all projects are.
Well, that's very true. And I think given everything that you guys have done with Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl from a front end of things or the back end, I think, you know, it's showing that your hard work is most definitely paying off. And, you know, of course, I know that you have a lot to say on the character design and development at Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl. So let me ask you this real quick, and you can feel free to deflect if you want. You're working with Nickelodeon. I mean, some of the most recognizable characters on the planet, you know, people our age hold a lot of these characters that are in the game near and dear to our heart. Like, I feel like there's probably more characters in there that I grew up with than maybe some of the ones that my siblings grew up with, like Oblina and the Ninja Turtles and so on and so forth. But if you had it your way right now, what characters would you like to see? If you can even say anything about it. Are there any characters you're like, I'm really fighting for them, and I just, maybe one day?
I could say, at most, I could say there are characters that I fought for and are fighting for. I absolutely cannot comment further.
Fair enough. Are there any characters in the game that you specifically fought for to be in that are in?
Can't comment on that either.
Damn.
Like, even if I could, I wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
Because, like, at most, I can look at Garfield
Okay.
and be like, oh, of course, look, Thaddeus has fingerprints all over that. When, in reality, no, I can say this.
Okay.
The fact that we were going to work on Garfield was kind of, like, sprung upon us. For a while, the final two characters for the game that were planned weren't planned as characters, they were planned more as, I guess I could say, slots, even though I don't like that idea of, because it reinforces the idea of slots to be filled in with the character basis. But at least for those two characters specifically, Garfield and Shredder, they were slots and in a tentative state where, okay, we don't know for sure who these characters will be. That's why they were worked on relatively late. That's why they didn't quite meet the threshold for release of the rest of the characters and various other things in the game.
Sure.
But ended up coming anyway. And one day, I think it was in either March or April, we just got told by one of the main people at GameMill, hey, by the way, your next character is going to be Garfield.
What the? And that was it.
So
yeah,
I was happy. I asked for emote perms immediately from Joel, so I could add 2 dozen Garfield emotes.
Yes.
And I did.
Yo, that's amazing. I have to comment, on the recent DLC as well. Shredder's absolutely amazing. I just left Max's place a couple days ago, and they were running friendlies, out the wahoo, getting ready for the Nick Summit, and Garfield, of course, there's a lot of that being played as well. So I guess this kind of brings me to my next point. This game, just given how well the developers and GameMill and everybody else that's a part of this project, given how much you guys listen to the community, I think it's just a beautiful thing to see. I think that's something that even to this day, in the current state of esports and gaming, whether it be casual or competitive, people just really struggle to listen to the community. And I get it. It's hard to try to sift through real criticism versus I'm just complaining because I'm not good at this game. But you guys have given us, partnered events. We have a Nickelodeon Summit on the rise, which I want to get into a little bit. Do you guys have any plans of doing like standalone Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl major events? Like, I would love to come to a Rugrats themed tournament or something. Like, what's up with that?
Like, I would love to see that too. That sounds like a blast. Something Nickelodeon themed. I'm still thinking that if an event like that were to happen, I think you know where I'm going with this. Right. Something to do with slime in person would be amazing. Like a dunk tank, but with slime. Is at the tip of my mind. But that's, again, while I would absolutely love to contribute to that, not necessarily my field, not my area. That is more GameMill, who have been front-running and just spearheading so much of the, like, persistent events. Just the events in general. I was trying to think of a specific with the events, but no, events in general have been entirely, like, their backbone. And to a degree that I could not replicate. That is not my forte. I can, help with events. Organizing them from the ground up, less so.
Well, I mean, that absolutely makes sense. And, at the end of the day, it's all a, joint effort, from people who have to put together the events, for people like yourself who have to put together the characters that we've all grown to love and, let us interact with them in a video game form. So my next question is this. Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, in a very, very good spot right now. It's accessible to everybody. It's on pretty much every console. People seem to be having a lot of fun with it. What are we to expect in the future? Obviously you don't have to go into great detail, but the game looks really well. Can we look forward to a Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl 2? I would love to see that.
A chance to look at the game and be like, hey, I do this different. Hey, I do this different. I think every single game developer would love that opportunity. But at the same time, if that were to happen, there wouldn't be any new games. It'd just be introducing Super Mario Brothers 397, coming out 2022.
Taking the Street Fighter 4 approach, give you 12,000 different versions of Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl Racing Remix Extreme Edition with 3 new characters and a couple new songs. It feels like you guys don't want to go that route. You guys more so want to give people a strong and solid finished product, let people enjoy it, and then of course go about it.
That is absolutely my focus, at least. I can't speak for what's going on in GameMill, what's going on in Fairplay. Those are their own departments, divisions, but my focus has always been seeing this game through. And I'm still not thrilled about the state of the game when it released, because there was so much that we put so much time and work into that just didn't make it. So seeing it all suddenly coming out piece by piece and people really enjoying it, really loving it, getting the time and energy it deserved, seeing that through has been great. So before I can even think about anything else in the future, I want to give all my focus to making sure this game is complete as everyone on the team can manage.
That's right. And you know, I think that the game, from a competitive standpoint, is in a very, very complete position. Now, of course, we've all seen the talks online about voice acting and things as such. And I will be honest, I didn't really think people cared much about that until this game came out. I was like, I said, Link doesn't talk. Like, he just makes noises. Like, do you really care if Oblina talks? So let me get your thoughts on that, like the voice acting and the music and all of that.
Yeah, that one is interesting. The music I can comment less on because, frankly, I don't know as much about that. I just know that the music team probably had it a bit rougher than the moveset team, at the least in terms of what was able to be presented and what was acceptable. But that's the extent of my knowledge. For voices, I have to say, I completely agree. I completely agree with the majority sentiment. Not that the game is ruined by it, but it should be expected with these properties. Like, I understand. I completely understand. It's Nickelodeon characters. People have grown up with them and identify with them. And in a medium of online cartoons, which is primarily funny visuals, funny dialogue.
That's right.
And if the game has one of those, but not the other, just by definition, it will feel more hollow. Now, obviously, the team worked around this to the best of our ability, and I am satisfied with what we have been able to accomplish, and I have to, like, absolutely commend the people who are insane enough to mod at the game and make it closer to what they feel is an ideal experience.
Sure.
But putting that all aside, I get it. I completely get the criticism of that. It's entirely valid. And if people don't care about it, you know what? That is just as valid. People are able to play the game and enjoy everything in it all the same. It won't matter for everyone, but the fact that it does matter for some, quite a few people, we hear that. We hear that.
And that's why I love, you know, the work that you guys do online. Again, just getting that one-to-one feedback, because I feel like sometimes when games come out, you know, there's like a lot of degree of separation, separating the community from the developers. They're like these, you know, 20, 30,000, you know, follow Twitter accounts verified. You know, they don't really respond. I'm saying things, I'm not hearing anything back. You know, you guys, GameMill, Max, everybody else that has a helping hand in this, you know, are very, very responsive. And you guys are really taking the initiative in areas that other developers won't. You know, for my last question, because I know you're a really busy guy, but give me your thoughts on the community right now. I know that there are a ton of players, given, you know, looking at the summits and of course just the bracket entries at SmashCon main stage, you know, and just so many other wonderful events. But what are your thoughts right now on the community as a whole?
I am blown away. I'm absolutely blown away by those that stick around, are making their voices heard to the best of their ability, giving aid however and wherever they can, contributing, whether it be through gameplay, suggestions, ideas, fan arts, helping run events, participating in events. It's all under that same umbrella of, we're doing this out of passion.
That's right.
There is a passion here, and whether that be because I love these properties, or I admire these developers, or just surface level, I enjoy this game. Whatever it is, the fact that people are sticking around, are finding something to enjoy and come back to repeatedly and consistently, that's great. I feel so... I'm blown away by it every single time. I cannot understate how just appreciative I am. I appreciate it so much.
Hey, and you know what that is? I appreciate you and all your time here, my friend. I'm so thankful that we had the opportunity to sit down and do this. I'm busy, so if I'm busy, I know you have to be 3 times more busy with you know, developing a game and listening to the community and having your hand in everything that has to do with this game. So with that in mind, friends, that's going to call it there. This concludes another Wide World of Electronic Sports exclusive one-on-one. It's myself. It is the legendary Thaddeus Cruz. A big thank you for coming onto the show with us, my friend. And we are out.